me, go beast on them. I go beast. Go deep, I OD on them. I OD. Apply pressure, put heat on them. Put that 500 degrees on them. 500 degrees. Go dummy, go beast on them. I go beast. Go deep, I OD on them. I OD. Apply pressure, put heat on them.
Yo guys, what is up? What's going on? My name is Spencer. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new around here, this is my 2020 Tacoma beside me. And in today's video, we're going to be continuing on with the lighting upgrades. Today I'm going to be installing the Diode Dynamics SS3 ditch light kit. You heard that right. Those are the same SS3 fog lights that I've got on my Tacoma, but they've released it now in a ditch light kit. I picked these up from Pro Lights here in Canada, and I went with the amber wide lenses. Important to note, these lenses are interchangeable, which is really sweet. But let's take a quick look at what's inside the box, lay it all out, and then get started with the install. Alright, so here's everything that's included in the box. You can see we've got the two SS3 pod lights there, the brackets. These are the brackets that'll mount onto the hood. We've got all our hardware, wiring harness, and then lastly, these really awesome pod covers that are gonna go right over top of the lights when I'm not using them. Alright, so first things first, of course, we need to open up the hood, as that's where we're gonna be working. And what we're gonna do is use some painter's tape and carefully tape just around the edge of the existing hood bracket so that it kind of saves our point where we had the bracket. Also will prevent it from getting scratched if we accidentally move something. Next, we're gonna go and get this bracket installed. Just wanted to point out that the piece here that you see that holds the actual pod light is gonna be facing outwards. So it can only fit one way, kind of like this. You'll realize it when you go to install it. But now we just have to undo those two 12mm bolts. And when you're undoing these, you're gonna want to support the hood because it might shift a little bit, but that's why we put the tape there. Once you've got the two bolts out, then we can go ahead and slide the bracket into position here. Again, I'm holding the hood up with my other hand. And once you've got the bracket in position, we can go and, it's kind of tricky with only two hands, but I am holding everything with one hand. Get the bolts and put them back in. So there's one. So it was a little bit tricky to follow that, but once you get that bracket into position loosely, we can adjust the hood to make sure we line it back up with the tape lines that we did. That is perfect right there. So now I'm gonna take the wrench and go ahead and tighten these bolts back up. All right, so now that we've got that bracket in position, we can actually take off this tape. And there you go, you can kind of see the bracket goes on the outside. And you're using the existing bolts, and then it comes right up here. Okay, so once you've finished up installing the bracket on one side, doesn't matter which one you start with, you can go over to the other side and get that bracket installed the same way. Just repeat the same process. On the passenger side though, you do have a hose for the washer fluid, so that one will be a little bit more tricky. Just work your way around it. Important thing to note is that the bracket's actually a little bit adjustable. So if you look down here, I've got a gap between the hood and the bracket right here. Make sure that when you tighten these bolts down that you've got this lined up so that you have a gap there, because you don't want that rubbing up against the hood when you're out driving or if you're off-roading going over bumps. And now we're gonna get started with mounting the SS3 pods up onto the brackets. Okay, so over here at the hardware and the lights, Diode Dynamics makes it really easy. Each bag of hardware is separate for each light, and there's a little diagram down here that explains to you the orientation that this hardware needs to go into. So go ahead and get these all set up and ready to mount up onto the brackets. All right, so once you've got all the hardware in, this is how it should kind of look. All right, so next is the fun part. We get to mount the SS3 light with the bracket that we just put on onto the ditch light bracket. All right, so it's a pretty tight fit, but I used a flat ratcheting wrench to fit down here and just tighten up the brackets. And I found lifting up the wiper blade helped give a little bit more clearance down there so that you can fit in and then get it all secured. You can leave these a little bit loose if you want so that later on you can align it in the way you want it to be sort of aiming. And once you're done this side, you just move on to the other side. Alright, so on one end of the wiring harness is 3 connectors. Each of these connectors connect to the switch that we're going to be installing on the inside of the Tacoma. The rest of this wiring is actually going to go up to the ditch lights and then to the battery. There's an existing grommet in the firewall that goes through for like all the electrical. I'm going to basically just use a zip tie, or you can use a coat hanger, and I'm going to tape these wires around this zip tie because I don't want to be yanking on these wires to pull them through there, but the zip tie's got more, you know, flexibility. I can push it through that grommet and then pull it through the inside. All right, so here's where the grommet is on the driver's side. Okay, try and pull it through now. Yep, keep going, it's good. All right, so once we've got the wiring through the firewall here, and it's coming out down here in the footwell, we're gonna organize and arrange the wiring so that we have enough length to reach each of the ditch lights. So I'm gonna run that wiring across the top over to the ditch light on the passenger side. Do the same for the driver's side, and this one you're gonna have a lot more extra slack in the wire, so we're gonna tidy that up. And then you're gonna have 2 wires that come down, positive and negative, that are gonna go onto the battery. So at this point, it's pretty much just plug and play. You're gonna connect the passenger ditch light, the driver's side ditch light, and then we're gonna go back inside, connect our switch, and then lastly, we'll connect everything up to the battery. Okay, so next I've just tidied up the wiring and kind of organized it a bit. So I took the wiring from the ditch light on the passenger side, ran it along the top here of the engine bay and zip tied it up behind this existing loom. And then all the other excess wiring I hid behind this fender piece right here. Okay, so now that we've got the ditch lights here connected, we've organized and tidied up the wiring a little bit in the engine bay. We've still not connected the power, of course. That'll be the last step. Now we have to move into the cabin where we've routed that wire through the firewall, and it's time to connect the switch. This step might vary depending on how you want to switch on and off your ditch lights. This right here is the switch that Diode Dynamics includes in the kit. It's a nice little basic toggle switch on and off. If you want to use the switch, what you need to do is drill a small hole somewhere up here. I'd recommend doing it in the blank spot here so you don't have to actually drill into your dash. And then you would just mount this switch up into the hole that you drilled and connect the 3 wires in the back. Super easy. Now for what I want to do, I've actually gone and found a Toyota OEM style switch, and I'll get inside here and I'll show you, but I want to mount mine down here. So without taking all of this apart, it's actually quite easy. Get a trim removal tool. You want to do this for sure so you don't scratch up and damage everything, but you're going to want to wedge it kind of in the bottom of one of these blanks, right? Try and wedge it in there and wiggle it around. If the bottom's not working, try the top. There's 2 clips, one on the bottom, one on the top. If you wiggle it out enough, you'll be able to pull it right out without having to take everything off. Alright, so what I'm going to do is route the wiring from the switch that I've created, that I'm using, down the back here. And if I reach down, I should be able to feel it come through. Okay, so it took a little bit of convincing to get the wiring through that opening there for the switch, but I've got it through now. And I've got my switch wiring down here, and then we've got the ditch light wiring over here. All that's left to do now is connect everything up and connect the power, and it should be good to go. If you're using the diode dynamic switch, you will use a trim removal tool up top here to pop this down, and you'd have to have drilled a hole there, and then you'll be able to connect this wiring to the back of that switch. All right, back under the hood here now, on to the final step, and that is just powering everything up. So I've tidied up the wiring and tucked all the excess under this fender piece here. It's quite easy, just kind of tuck it up underneath. And then black's gonna go to negative first, and red's gonna go to positive. So 10 mil socket, loosen up the negative terminal just a little bit. And then we're just gonna connect this onto the terminal. And then the red wire I'm gonna put onto the positive, and I'm actually gonna put it on the bigger one up here just because it looks cleaner. All right, and just like that, guys, we are done the installation. All that's left to do now is close the hood, and we can test them out. So the install was pretty straightforward. It took me just under 2 hours, and I really recommend taking your time on this one, double checking all the wiring. Make sure you check the wiring schematic that's included in the box. Make sure you get all that stuff connected up properly, and then with all the nuts, bolts, and washers with the brackets and the actual ditch lights, make sure you get that all assembled correctly. But this is a nice install that I think anyone could do it themselves in their garage. Having a second set of hands to help is beneficial, especially when you're holding up that hood. But as you saw, I did it pretty much on my own at that part. So I'm really looking forward to testing these out in the dark. So stay tuned for the next video. I'm gonna go out in the back country, a couple different dirt roads, country roads with different ditches and whatnot, and we'll see how they really illuminate the ditch, and we'll launch the drone up in the sky and see how far they can go out. As you guys know, I've ordered all the Diode Dynamics lighting upgrades here on my Tacoma from Pro Lights. They're right here in Canada, and they also ship down to the US. If you're interested in picking up these ditch lights, you can head on over to the website, and at checkout, enter the code SpencerTaco, and you'll get yourselves a free set of these Diode Dynamics pod covers. They come in 4 different styles, different colors, and they just pop right on here like this. And what these do is protect them when you're not using them. If you're out on a dirt road and it's the daytime, you're not using them, rocks flinging up, whatever. Also, in some places, they are kind of required by law. So if you get pulled over, you shouldn't get hassled for having auxiliary lights like this that aren't covered. So really awesome, they're including those in there for you guys. Head on over to Pro Lights and check it out. I'll have a link, of course, down below in the description. Leave a comment on this video, guys, and let me know what you think of this ditch light kit on the Tacoma. And stay tuned for the next video. I'm gonna show you some more footage of what these really look like as I'm out driving in the dark. If you're not already subscribed, hit that button down below. Turn on the notifications, because in a couple weeks, maybe sooner, we're gonna be doing another really awesome lighting upgrade on the Tacoma here. If you can guess what it is, leave a comment, let me know. But we'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks so much for watching. Peace.